um, as I'm zooming through here. I hope that you join me, that you stay to the end, because there may actually be something for you. I'm not taking any questions today, but certainly if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. All of my contact information is in my bios. There's links, there's ways to find me. I'm easily Googleable. So if there's something that you are interested in or need to know more of, but what I would encourage you to do is stick around to the end. Because that one thing that's for you may be at the end. But anyway, let me start again. First of all, shout out to you all for coming through. I'm really excited about this opportunity to just share once again. And when I say that I put this training together with the objective of really helping people to ease through this season, believe me, because I know firsthand how difficult it can be, particularly once you've experienced a separation or a divorce or a change in family structure, all of the things like that. So I thought we should do this very last minute. And so what that means is I did not do a lot of promo for this. It's literally something I'm sharing from the heart, and I have no expectations of what's going to come out of this other than someone's going to get something that they need on today as a result of showing up. So with that being said, let's get the formalities out of the way and then let's kick this. My goal is to be done about an hour mark, but we'll see where the vibes take us. All right, so first and foremost, my name is Rhonda Gipson-Willis. I'm the founder and CEO of a corporate training company called RGW Ventures. And through there, I do corporate trainings, I do executive coaching, I do keynote speaking, I do a lot of things, which accordingly, I'm a certified coach. I've been certified as a coach for the last 10 years. Wow, it's about to be 11. I'm also a licensed therapist. I've been a licensed therapist for almost 21 years. I'm a corporate trainer. Again, I actually get paid to go out and speak to companies and train their employees on leadership and leadership development, soft skills, things like that. I am a motivational speaker, which sounds kind of, everybody says they're a motivational speaker, but I will tell you that when I speak, the people get motivated. And I say that to say, you don't have to be a good speaker to be a motivational speaker anyway. I like to say I have a speech impediment, but I still get paid well to do it. I'm also an Amazon best-selling author. And what I will say with that is more of a shameless plug than anything. No, it's more of a shameful plug because I really don't want anybody looking up that book. It was the worst 12 pieces of writing I've ever done in my life. But stay tuned because I'm also writing a new book that will hopefully be on somebody's best-selling list, but don't go check for that one. I was also the featured therapist and coach on a docu-series that premiered on Amazon Prime called Love Exposed. So if you've not, go ahead and check that out. You can find it on Amazon Prime, and I believe it's on Tubi. It's a couple of different things, but it gives some insights into relationships, what it takes to keep them, what to do when you lose them. Just, yeah, you might find it helpful. So go be sure to check that out. But here's the thing about this. Time is going to fly real quick. So what I would advise you to do, whether you just stumbled upon this right now or whether you've been prepared for this, is grab you something to take some notes. Grab you something to take some notes because something inevitably is going to hit you that you're going to want to remember. Something's going to hit you that's going to be impactful for you. And like I said, I'm just going through this. This is not a dialogue, so I'm not speaking to anybody. I'm just straight talking. So we're going to go through it rather quickly. If you are viewing this and you did not register and you would like to get a copy of the replay, because the goal is to have a replay, make sure that you go on to my links and register for the Healed for the Holidays training. You can still register even after it starts. And then that will allow you to be on the list to get the replay. With that being said, let's go. So as I promised, if you stay to the end, I might have a little something for you that can actually help continue what it is that you're going to be doing with me for the next 55 minutes or so. But I want to tell you a little bit about my story. So Most of you met me at a point in my life where my life had a major upheaval. But obviously before that, I lived a lot of life. I'm 53 years old. I was recently divorced, and I keep saying recently divorced, but the divorce has been final a little over a year. So I'm recently divorced after being with my ex-husband almost 30 years. So we were together for the majority of our adulthood. And because of that, I I've always been the type of person who's been pretty transparent on social media. I've always been the coach that showed up and spoke about coaching, spoke about purpose, spoke about living your best life and pushing through the barriers to do that. And so what happened was I did a video and it was the most pitiful looking video I've ever done in my life. Well, no, it's the second most pitiful looking video I've ever done in my life, because I have another one on Facebook that's way more pitiful looking. But and when I did that video, the video went viral. It was my first viral video. And once that happened, I started to get a lot of followers who are also in the same situation. And so what that looked like for me was, now I'm creating content around this area where people are struggling in their lives, right? So what I found was that there are a lot of people who are struggling in silence, right? They're suffering in silence. They are dealing with a lot of the issues of a separation or divorce or marriage that's falling apart, and they are struggling. What I found was, when I lended my voice to that space, what happened was, a lot of women came out of the woodwork, and some men. So as people were coming out of the woodwork and they were talking about how difficult this journey had been for them, I found that my content shifted, right? It shifted, particularly on social media, TikTok and Instagram. Is shifted more to this area. And what's happened is, it's been interesting because I've gotten a lot of people who say, why do you keep talking about divorce? You're promoting divorce. You're this. No, what I'm promoting is that there's another side of divorce. That even though you're going through this journey, you can come out the other side. Even though it can be difficult to navigate, you can still come out the other side. And what happens is, people see me today and they see me on the other side of healing. They see me on the other side of the work. They see me on the other side of getting past not wanting to be here, getting past all of that. And they see me today and they think, oh, you know what? That wasn't difficult for you. You don't know my story. Well, my story started in the same places that a lot of your stories start. That was probably the day that I posted that video. That was me in a coaching session with my coach. That was me in a very, very vulnerable time. That was when I did not want to fight. That was when I did not want to do the work. That was when I did not believe that the me that's sitting here today existed. I didn't believe she existed. The version of me that has the amount of peace that I have, the version of me that can make a video that speaks to how my ex-husband and I have an amicable relationship, and we could be in the same room and be friendly. She didn't believe that this me existed. And so what I do is I show up as this me to remind those of you who are still like that she exists. You have to do the work. You have to fight for her. You have to stand up for her. You have to say, you know what? I'm going to make decisions today that make future me proud. And here's what I know. Back then, even though I didn't want to do it, even though the last thing I felt was that I was worth it, even though I had no idea how it was going to happen, even though I was in a season, right? And if you follow me, you know I'm a God girl, so I'm going to talk about my Lord and Savior. Even though I felt like God had forgotten about me, I still showed up because I wanted to make future me proud. I wanted to make decisions to make future me proud. And today I can look at past me and I can say, baby girl, I'm so proud of you because you did the damn thing. You did it. You did it, even though everything in you said, we ain't about this life. See, I was showing up and I was serving the world. I was serving other people, and I was operating in this way that was tied to my gifts, because I understand my gifts. I understand the gifts that God has given me. But I also thought that perhaps the thorn in my side was going to be the anxiety or the depression or the things that it felt like I was never going to be able to get rid of. But I showed up in spite of. I did the work. And when I tell you, it was not easy. It was not easy. The other day, my niece, who's 10 years old, she asked me, she said, "TT Rhonda, you're a therapist. Why did you need a therapist?" And I said, the reality is we all need therapists. We all need objective outside people who can help us to see ourselves outside of ourselves. Because even though this version of me existed, when I closed the door, when I showed up, my clients got magic. When I showed up, my clients got what it was that they needed. And so I started to accept my fate as being, I was going to have to be her and show up and give to the people and give to the people, sometimes to my detriment. And I still decided to show up and fight. I still decided to show up and fight. And because I showed up to fight, you have this version of me today who can show up with a smile on her face, with hope in her heart, with peace that surpasses all understanding. And so I'm here as like the Harriet Tubman of peace, right? To come back and get my sisters and brothers who are still struggling and help walk you to freedom. And so this message is not for the people who don't understand how people get divorced. This message is not for the people who say that God doesn't like divorce. This is not for the people who are stuck in judgments. This is not for the Pharisees. These are for the people who this message lands with. Because I know there are a lot of you out there. So that's why I show up. That's why I continue to show up. So the other thing that I learned with that, right, which I already knew, was that your wounds don't disqualify you. Oftentimes we believe that what we've been through is a stopper, won't allow us to show up in the ways that we're meant to show up. It won't allow us to be who it is that God designed us to be. But sometimes, right, sometimes the things that we've gone through are specifically in alignment with our purpose. And so understanding that the story doesn't end at the wounding, but we cannot allow ourselves to bleed all over the people. So we still have to do the healing. We still have to do the work. We still have to show up on the days we don't want to show up. We still have to do the damn thing when we don't give a damn. So with that being said, it's incumbent upon us. It behooves us even that we do the work and we heal. We heal not only for ourselves, not only for our inner child, but we heal for the people around us who will benefit from our healing. I have 4 daughters, and I could not afford for them to see their mother broken. I could not afford for them to see their mother broken. So with that, I want you to understand, wherever you're at right now, however you're feeling, wherever your hope meter is, I want you to understand and know that peace is possible. Peace is possible. And this is coming from a woman who did not believe that peace was possible for her. I prayed for healing. I fasted for healing. I fasted and prayed so hard and long that I fell out twice. Never fainted in my life until I fasted and prayed. But on the other side, I got my breakthrough. The peace is possible, but you're going to have to show up. You're going to have to fight for it. You're going to have to do the work. So with that being said, regardless of where you're at, regardless of what your journey is like, regardless of where you're at in your journey, we got to face it. The holidays are coming in. The holidays can be heavy. The holidays could be heavy. I remember the first set of holidays after my mother died. She died a week after Mother's Day. And then there was Thanksgiving, and then there was Christmas, and then there was her birthday 2 days after Christmas. And then there was the first, right? I remember when my divorce was final. And although I was out, not even before my divorce was final, when we separated. And the thing about it, the ironic thing about it is that 3 years ago today, we were on a trip, right? Which has been coined the closeout tour, because it was a 3-week trip that we went on, and we stayed on a beautiful island. And at that beautiful island, in a wonderful Airbnb, as we drove back and spent 3 weeks together, it became even more clear that we didn't really belong together. We weren't showing up as the best versions of ourselves with each other. So we decided to let each other go. And even though it was amicable, now I will say there were a couple hiccups, but even though it was amicable, that doesn't mean that it wasn't hard, right? That doesn't mean it wasn't hard. The first holiday was pretty awkward. But what's happened is I understand how holidays can be triggering for a variety of reasons. I'll just say that. The holidays can be heavy. If you know the holidays can be heavy for you, lean in, right? Because we're going to talk about some ways to lighten it up, perhaps, right? So there are several reasons that the holidays could be heavy: divorce, separation, unresolved grief, seasonal affective disorder. If you live in a climate that doesn't get a lot of light, right? That's a real thing. Unresolved trauma. And sometimes the holidays force us to be around people who have traumatized us. And we go and we smile and we pretend that nothing's ever happened, although we can pretend on the outside, but on the inside, our insides are doing the thing, right? And Thanksgiving is a couple of days away. So I want to ask you, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing really, knowing that Thanksgiving is a couple of days away? So here's the thing. I know that some of you are going to say I'm doing just fine. You're going to be doing just fine until the holidays hit. So let's get healed for the holidays. Now, in homage to my good friend, TJ Mercer, TJ loves a good acronym, and I do too. So every time I do a training, I'm going to use an acronym. So our acronym for this training is HEALED for this webinar, H.EA.L.E.D, HEALED. The H stands for heal your heart. In order to heal your heart, you have to examine your heart. You have to give yourself time and space to be alone with yourself so you can feel your feelings. See, sometimes you believe that thing is healed because you've been so distracted from it. You've been so distracted from it. If you've not spent the time alone, if you've not allowed yourself time to stop or slow down long enough, you may allow yourself to believe that your heart is healed from things that you've not told anybody about. Oh, that was a long time ago. People like to say that time heals. Time does not heal. Time hides. Time hinders. But what time does not do is heal. Time does not heal anything if you don't treat it. And some of you are walking around with untreated wounds. You have abscesses in your heart. It's time to dig in and do the work you've been trying to avoid, the work that you've gotten 2 and 3 jobs so that you don't have to deal with what happens when you slow down. You got to make the commitment to heal your heart, because if you don't heal your heart, your triggers will trigger you. So an analogy that I like to use with some of my clients is I talk about a splinter. And I don't know if you've ever gotten a splinter, right? If you ever gotten a splinter in your finger, and sometimes you get a splinter in your finger and you think you got all the visible part out, right? You think you got it out. But what happens is it still hurts a little, even though you got it out. But sometimes you don't realize that there's still part of that splinter still in your finger. But what happens is it heals, right? Your finger starts to heal around it. And when your finger heals around it and you can't see the splinter anymore, you think everything is good until you knock that finger up against something. And then you are painfully made aware that that splinter is still there. And unless or until you cut that finger open and extricate that splinter out, you will consistently deal with what happens when you accidentally hit that finger. Sometimes we're avoiding the short-term pain. We're avoiding the short-term pain in exchange for getting rid of the long-term pain. And what's happened to a lot of you is you have splinters all up and down your body, which are fine, The splinters are cool because they're covered up and you can't see them. Nobody can see these splinters. But what happens when somebody bumps up into you? Now you're raging, or you're crying, or you're out of control, or you don't know. Healing your heart extricates those splinters. It removes the splinters. It allows you to fix the wounds. When you fix the wounds, you're no longer speaking from your wounds. When you're speaking from your wounds, you're speaking in a very nasty, painful way sometimes. You ever snap on somebody and you go, ooh, I don't know where that came from. Triggered. You were triggered. And a trigger is just a reminder of an unhealed wound. You got to heal your triggers. And the thing about it is healing is a process. People like to say, you know what? Well, I went to therapy that one time, or I talked to somebody, or I got over it. But healing is a process. It's a process that you have to be invested in. It's a process that you have to connect with. It's a process that you have to dig in and get dirty with. You won't just heal haphazardly. Nobody just stumbles upon healing. I promise you that. And here's the truth that we don't really like to accept. Because the reality is what happened to you in your life may not have been your fault. It may not have been your fault. You may not have had any onus in what happened or why it happened. But it's now your responsibility. What happened to you was not your fault. But you now carry the responsibility of healing it. And if you sit on the heel of they broke it, they should buy it, you would spend your whole life with broken pieces. Your healing is your responsibility. It's not contingent on the actions of any other person. They can't fix it for you. I don't care how much you acquiesce. They can't do it. So the E, I told y'all we were going to move quickly. The E stands for expectations and boundaries. As you are going into this holiday season, it behooves you to set expectations and to have boundaries. Now, expectations, you want to set expectations based on the information that you know, that you've ascertained. But here's the thing I want people to really truly understand about boundaries, because I think people get it mixed up sometimes. I think sometimes, and I say I think sometimes because I'm saying this anecdotally because I've seen this with my clients, where people have misconstrued what the true establishment of boundaries is. Oftentimes they believe that establishing a boundary means you're telling somebody what they can and can't do. That's not establishing a boundary. You establish a boundary by letting them know the behavior that you will stick around for. So for example, I'm an asthmatic. It's light. I haven't had an asthma attack in a really long time. But if I'm around someone who's smoking, right, I have an expectation that they're going to care enough about me that they wouldn't smoke about me. They wouldn't smoke around me. But if they still persist in doing it, I can establish a boundary that doesn't say you can't smoke. But I can say, if you're going to smoke, I'm going to leave. That's a boundary. If you're going to yell at me on the phone, I'm going to hang up. I used to try that one a lot when I worked for other people, and folks start calling and cussing me out. Don't act like I'm the only one that been cussed out by somebody who called on the phone, who wouldn't dare cuss you out in public. But that's a whole different story, right? So a boundary is you can keep cussing and you can keep smoking, but you're not about to play in my face with it. You're not about to do that right here, right? And so establishing your boundary looks a lot like letting people know, okay, that's cool. That's cool for you. But as for me and myself, I'm going to remove myself from this equation. And some of you have to get better about the boundaries that you're establishing for the behavior that is appropriate around this time of the year. Now, maybe that looks like You letting folks know when you go, if someone asks you about your relationship status, you're not going to answer the question. Here's the thing I would tell you. You're not obligated to give anybody your personal information. I know it feels that way. But a boundary is, you know what? I'm not willing to speak about that right now. And moving on. Boundaries are important because what they do is they give people the framework of how to treat you and how to respond to you and what to do around you. Have you ever noticed that there's some people who don't get treated in certain ways by certain people who treat other people differently? Have you ever noticed that? Boundaries, whether verbalized or shown, they've established boundaries. And for far too long, a lot of us have been doormats for other people. And so what does it look like when you set a realistic boundary based on these expectations? And the reality is you can set a boundary and you can disagree with somebody without being disagreeable. We don't have to fight about it. We like to make conflict. We like to make it something that's this huge thing when all it is the difference of opinion. Look, you don't have to be right and I don't have to be wrong. And I don't have to be right and you don't have to be wrong. We could just have a disagreement. It's a difference of opinion. That's all a conflict is. And if we could see it for what it is, then maybe we won't get so caught up in personalizing it. Disagree without being disagreeable. So you know what? We can agree to disagree on this. You don't have to win the argument. You don't have to go to every argument that you're invited to. You can leave people where you found them. You don't always have to prove a point. And this is my favorite. I actually did a video about this recently when I said no is a complete sentence. Hey, can you do X, Y, and Z? No. Why not? Because no. Now, oftentimes we feel compelled to give people reasons, but we don't owe anybody an explanation. When we say no, when we set a boundary, and if we can get out of the place of doing all the extra, putting a comma where a period should be, because for some people, if they're trying to talk you out of your no, you need to assess whether or not they need to be able to have that much access to you. No is a complete sentence. And here's the thing about expectations, because I talk about boundaries and expectations. With expectations, you've got to be realistic with your expectations. And being realistic about your expectations means that you know your people well enough to know what to expect from them. You know yourself well enough to know what to expect from you. And here's the thing. Some of us know other people better than we know ourselves. I'm going to leave y'all with that one because I talk about that one a lot. I talk about that one a lot, about how most of us don't know ourselves as well as we think we do. But you have to know people to have the appropriate, to assign the appropriate expectations for them. For some people, you've expected too much. And because of that, you've ended up with hurt feelings. You've hurt your own feelings because they've shown you time and time again that they're going to be and do who they've always been. Set realistic expectations. If you know you're going to the messy cousin's house for Thanksgiving, know that it's going to get messy. And know that when this gets messy, that you're going to have a plan on how you're going to respond. And allow yourself some outs. That's what the A stands for. Allow yourself some outs. Allow yourself the opportunity to say, you know what? I'm going to be here, but don't expect me to be here alone. Allow yourself to go, you know what? On that cue, I'm out. Set up your non-negotiables before you get there, even if you're just doing it with yourself, that you know that this is the time to leave, that this is where it ends. Allow yourself some outs. And don't commit past your comfort. Don't commit to things just because you've always committed to things if you know that they make you uncomfortable. How many times have you subjugated what it is that you need, what it is that you desire for the comfort of other people. How's it turned out for you? And sometimes we do things for other people to make things easy on the outside, but what it does is it creates turmoil inside of us. We're avoiding conflicts with them and starting a war with ourselves. So don't commit to anything past your comfort. Set limits and boundaries for yourself. And on that note, the L stands for love from a distance. Honey, you can love them over there. You can love them dearly over there. Do not fool yourself into believing that everyone should have the same level of access to you if they are constantly hurting your heart, if they are disappointing you, if they're making things more difficult for you. Because here's what I'll say on your healing journey, you have to be very intentional about who you allow around you. You have to be very selective of your inner circle. And your inner circle are those people that you know you can count on. Your inner circle are the places where you can go, where you could be vulnerably yourself, where you could be transparent, where you don't have to worry about your business being out there on the street, where you could take off the mask. And far too many of us are far too indiscriminate of who we allow in our inner circle. And we allow people in our inner circle sometimes based on proximity because they've always been there. As you grow, as you heal, you'll find that some of your circles are going to change. And that's okay. That's okay. Be okay with that. Quite frankly, there are some people in your inner circle right now who are benefiting from your brokenness. Tough pill to swallow. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's a very real pill. So just know and believe that the time to reevaluate your circle is now. And sometimes that means that you have to be willing to forgive the people who have violated those trusts without forgetting. You know, there's an adage, forgive and forget. Well, I could forgive you, but I ain't forgot what you did. Now, I'm not going to hold it over your head. Just know that I made a note. And because of the egregiousness of your offense, you no longer get the access to me that you once had. Forgiving without forgetting. I can release myself of the barriers and the weight of unforgiveness. And I start with forgiving myself. You want to have an easier time going through this holiday season? Stop shoulding on yourself. Stop telling yourself how you ruined things. Stop berating yourself for the decisions that you made 2, 3 years or decades ago. Stop beating yourself up about things that are unchangeable. You can't change it. Forgiving yourself is germane to your healing process. You are not able to heal. You cannot heal if you're not willing to forgive yourself. If you're not willing to allow yourself the self-compassion, the self-empathy that it takes, that is required in order to give it to other people. And until or unless you forgive yourself, you won't allow yourself the pleasure of healing. Because healing is a perk, is a benefit. So you have to start with forgiving yourself and forgiving them too, because sometimes that looks like accepting the apology that you will never get. So what do I mean when I say accepting an apology you'll never get? I mean that some of you are waiting for apologies from people who don't have the language of apology. They've apologized in their language, but you still have not accepted. You've not even been aware that there was an apology. You're waiting for them to apologize in a way. You want them to say that they're sorry. They've said they're sorry in a number of different ways. They've shown it. But because they haven't said those words, right? We get stuck on these areas of principle sometimes, right? We get stuck in these spaces that are not a benefit to us. And sometimes that stuckness is in not accepting the apology, or not accepting that you're not going to get the apology. How much peace might you have in your life if you release the expectation that you're going to get a verbal apology from someone who has wronged you? If you want a verbal apology, start with yourself. Start with you. Apologize to yourself and then let it go. Because the truth is, let me go back. If not, you're drinking the poison. You're drinking the poison. So there's an adage that says, holding on to unforgiveness is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. You're holding on to the poison. You're drinking the poison. It is making you sick. And they are out bebopping, living their lives. They don't even know. They don't even see you on the corner sipping on poison. They have no idea. And you're sitting in unforgiveness and not accepting of the apology that they thought they already gave you. Let it go, Buttercup. Let it go. Let it go. The next I'll say, make sure you elicit support. So when I spoke earlier about people suffering in silence, I mean, there are a lot of people who are suffering in silence. This is your opportunity to seek out the helpers. And here's the thing, like sometimes you're not real sure where the helpers are. You look at your current circle and you go, they can't help themselves. I know they can't help me. Sometimes that means it's time to elevate or change your circle. So for me, and I speak about this a lot, I had right after several months after my marriage ended, right? Well, we were separated. I had a really close friend. She was my best friend, road dog. We were going to be friends for the rest of our lives. It was a covenant friendship, all of the things, right? And that friendship started getting a little rocky. And because of where I was in that season of really leaning in and trusting God, in the places where she thought I was going to fall apart, because she basically told me, like, God said you weren't going to let this go. But in the places where she thought I was going to fall apart, I said, okay, God, you know I need people. Send your people. The very next day, I get a phone call. And it's a phone call that goes, oh, you're still in town? We should go to lunch before you leave, because I was planning on leaving town. That phone call and that person, and it was somebody who I was real cool with. Like, we were real cool. Like, we spent a lot of time. We're not spent a lot of time together. We spent time together. We're real cool. And that person has become my person. That person is my best friend today. And it was because I didn't look at who all was around me at the moment. I offered out. I said, I put my petition before the Lord and said, okay, God, send your people. And here's the thing I'm sure of, and this is where in my group programs and in my one-on-one coaching, I like to evaluate all of the spheres of your life. It's a holistic approach. We start with physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Where are you at spiritually? Because spiritually, I had to grow up a lot over the last 2 years. And because of that, when I said, I released it and I said, okay, God, send your people. What I found is that he has both sent people in and he's released people. But I had to be willing to allow those people to be my people. You have to be willing to allow yourself to get vulnerable again. You have to allow yourself to be trusting. You have to allow yourself to lean, perhaps in ways that you've never leaned before. Because for me, I had always been this hyper independent woman, right? Who's out there rescuing the world, but I wouldn't allow anybody to rescue me. And when I found myself on my face, begging God, just begging and pleading with God, I knew I had to let that go. And it wasn't so much, I don't know if it was pride more so than it was control and a trauma response, which a lot of us experience. So again, it's very helpful sometimes to have outside objective people. Part of the reason I'm a coach because I'm outside objective people for a lot of people. Now, I can't be outside objective people if we too close, because now I want to fight everybody that hurt you, but you get the gist. So elicit the support and then allow it. And that's where it's required to build that vulnerability muscle. It's required to stretch in ways perhaps you haven't had to stretch before. It's required that you do things that maybe you never thought you would, with people you didn't even know existed. And here's the thing, and I posted this a while ago. So, the thing that's exciting about life, and it really depends on how you're looking at it. If you're looking at from a fear-based perspective, then it could be scary. But if you look at it from a faith-based perspective and you think about every day, any day could be the day that you meet someone who changes your whole life. Any day could be the day that you meet the love of your life. You get that job opportunity. Your TikTok blows up. Any day could be that day when you live a day where the lens is faith and not fear. And what fear does is it shrinks us. It shrinks us into a place that it makes the world scary. And because of that, a lot of people are not showing up and reaping the full benefits of their prophecy. I don't know who that was for, but that was for somebody. Now the D, if you can spell, you know that we are at the last one, healed. The D stands for don't give up on you. At the beginning, we talked about how this is a process. You cannot give up on you. In the 3 years that I was fighting for it, when I tell you I was depressed from 2015 to 2021, some years were harder than others. Some years were harder than others, but I showed up, I did the work, I fought. I showed up, I did the work, I fought. I showed up, I did the work, and I fought. And because of that, I've created blueprints for other people. Because people are always asking me, Rhonda, how did you do it? I did it because even when I didn't feel like I was worth it, I believed that I was worth it. And the truth is, you're worth it too. You're worth everything that you have to invest, the blood, sweat, the tears in your healing. And the process is worth it. Coming out the other end, everything that I went through has gotten me to this life where I love my life, where I have peace that surpasses all understanding, where I have faith, where I don't get triggered. Because I tell you, I used to be triggered, y'all. I used to be triggered and I had to lean and I had to do the work. But you're worth it. You're worth the fight for yourself. Either you can fight against it or you can fight for it. If you fight against it, you're exerting the same amount of energy, but you're getting a worse result. Divert your energy to the place that heals you, to the place that is worth it, to the spaces where it's necessary and needed for you. Whew. I can feel it heavy on somebody. I don't know. That it feels real heavy right now. It feels real heavy right now. It feels real heavy. You're questioning your worth. You don't know. You don't believe. You think God's forgotten about you. He has not. He is not. He is not. He says, stand up. Stand up and fight. There's fight in you. There's fight in you. You take one step, he'll help you take the next. But you got to stand up. You got to fight for it. You got to believe it. And you've got to do it even if you don't believe it. Even if you don't believe it, you've got to do it. Woo. Whoever that was for, hit me up, because that was for one of you. Hit me up. My contact information is in the links. Y'all know where to find me. Google me. You can find me. So with that, I told you if you stuck around to the end that there was going to be an opportunity and offer for you. Now, here's the thing. As it relates to this work, as it relates to the spaces that I'm intentional about creating, as it relates to how I pray that the way I show up impacts people, I've had to get more cognizant of the fact that in some ways I've been hiding. So I've been convicted that I need to start offering some ways for people to work with me, some additional ways. Now I have a few. You guys know, you hit the link, you see where you can work with me. But this is something I think is going to be beneficial for people between now and the holiday weekend, the next 2 days. But it is my Peace Blueprint digital course. It's a digital course. So what that means is it's fully downloadable. You can work at it at your own pace. And it allows you to do the work. Now, part of the work with it at your own pace, there's some things that may work concurrently, because I have some assignments in there that will take you through a week. There's 6 modules, which includes video lessons, customized workbooks, and journal prompts. So it's almost like working with me one-on-one, but without me in your ear. So you get the opportunity to have a session with me, and my sessions are going up. My one-on-ones are going up at the beginning of the year, $250. They're $175. But I find that when people pay, they pay attention. So with that being said, you're going to get more benefit of that, because these are things that you can keep with you, right? So you'll get a workbook and all of that. And I'm gonna tell you about the 6 modules. The first module is commitment. It's not just the decision that you made, but the choices that you make after the decision. What does that look like? And so leaning into that. Another one is, we talk more about forgiveness. Who do you need to forgive? How do you start with forgiving yourself? What's the work you need to do? You need to stop drinking the poison. How to choose peace over principle, because some of you are stuck in that place where everything is a fight. Not everything is worth fighting about. You are dying on some hills that you don't need to be dying on. The next module is mindset. It's my favorite. And so you'll hear about that when you get in, and we'll talk about how to reset and refocus your mindset. I firmly believe that if you change your mind, you can change your life. It's worked for me. It's worked for a myriad of clients that I work with, that if you really put in the work to change your mind, you can change your life. And what it's like to choose you. Being self-full isn't selfish, because what I've heard from a lot of people is they've been accused of being selfish because they've chosen themselves. I unapologetically choose me. Because what I recognize is I can't save anybody else until I save myself. So what does it look like to choose you? Being selfful without being selfish. And then choosing the work. What is it like to lean into the work after it? So, because the reality is you don't heal by accident. You will never heal by accident. It's not happening. Now, the Peace Blueprint is a $1,500 value, because again, it's like having 6 or 7 sessions with me at least. But of course, that's not what I'm charging. It is $297, which is the lowest price offer I've ever done. But there's a Black Friday deal, $249, because you know it's Black Friday, right? $249. Here's the thing about the $249 is actually I have Afterpay as an option. So if you want to get it in, you want to break those payments up, knock yourself out. And to get to it, you go to the peaceblueprint.com. Once you purchase it, you'll get it downloaded, and you can start tonight to be freshly prepared for Thursday morning. The peaceblueprint.com. thepeaceblueprint.com. Because here's the thing, you really don't have anything to lose. The amount of progress that you can gain by leaning into the work that I've carefully curated will be beneficial enough to where it's $250 is not. That's the price of one session with me. So with that being said, that's the end of my webinar. Thepeaceblueprint.com is where you go. The link is in all my bios, right? So if there's something you want to look at, take a look at. And then there's also an opportunity, if you purchase the blueprint, you get the opportunity to upgrade into my group. My group is $3,900, but the opt-in for Black Friday is almost 50% of that. Actually, 50% of that. So get in where you fit in, and that too is on Afterpay. But get in where you fit in, and if for no other reason we don't go any further than right here, I pray that you were able to get something that you needed that will help you in this season. But remember, lean into the work because you are worth it. You are worth it. You are worth it. You are worth it. My group program, just to give you a little bit of information about that, is a 12-month program, but you're basically in the group for the life of the group. So there's 12 months. We do curriculum. I have a coaching call once a week. Once a month. Coaching call once a month, and then a teaching call once a month. And then we can yeah. So I'm going to be changing up a few things over in there. I'm going to move it to a different place. So for those of you who didn't like Facebook, I'm sorry, it's going to be a Facebook group. But anywho, I pray that this is giving you some of what you need to get through this season. And with that, I bid you farewell, and I'll see you on the other side. Yeah, take care. Bye.